Hi there. So let's say you had a theme that sounded more or less like this. Yeah, you know the deal. So let's say you wanted to add some really nice drums to that. And I'm going to review a plugin today that can do this really easily for you. Let's take a look at the plugin Drums by Ujam. And before I go through the whole plugin, I wanted to show you how quickly you can do this. And if you pay attention to the plugin, you will see me adding these notes live. Let's go from the top. Before we get on with the review, I just wanted to quickly mention that my name is Sam, and this channel is called Second Tier Sound. I'm not only focusing on reviews, I also create videos on how to work within a DAW, specifically orchestration. If that interests you, you can always subscribe to get more videos. I also wanted to say that I'm not sponsored by UJam, but I am an affiliate, so that means if you are interested in buying this plugin or checking it out, you can always click on the link below and that will support me a bit. So let's get on with the review. So let's go over this plugin just a little bit more in depth so you understand exactly how it works. And if you watch my previous video about strings from Ujam, you will see that it has pretty much the same interface. The difference is the name, obviously, and the colors, and perhaps a little bit down here, but otherwise it's pretty much exactly the same plugin. You will see. And this is a good thing. So let's go over how it works. If you see down here, you will see this represents pretty much your keyboard. So C2, if I hit that key, it will start to play a phrase. And as I go up, it will become more complex. And so on. So no matter what sound you have chosen, these phrases are always the same, which is a good thing. So you can have the same rhythms if you want to. But the style phrases are unique to the sound you have chosen. So let's listen to that. So on. As you can hear, there's also a dynamic layer built into these samples, while the common phrases all have the same dynamic layer. Well, I'm going to show you how you can change that later. But this is very nice. So you get unique phrases to that sound, and you also get the dynamic layer in. So it's very nice to build up these samples. You get some variation. You start slow, and then you build it up, instead of just a loop that sounds the same. This is very, very good. Now, let's look at what you can do up here. You have some hits. And you can do that anytime you like to create some variation, obviously. Like that. So that's very nice. These are not great to sort of play with, because they don't have a lot of variation in the sample. So they sound very repetitive. So they're better for hits. Now, we have medals here, which are usually different kinds of cymbals. Yeah, so you can go... And then you have intro, so you can intro it. All this one. Now these intros and these fills are usually a bar long, but you can start anytime you like, so you get the remainder of the bar. For example... See, that was just the last. Or I can start on 1. Yeah. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. So quite useful. And then we have endings, which are 2 ending drums and 1 silent. So that can be nice if you want to end on a big bang, like, or if you just want to end in the middle of the phrase, like that. So that gives more flexibility. Some of these libraries you have a whole sample playing through, and this one you can end whenever you like. All right, so you have timing here, which is making it more swingy if you want. Quite subtle, but very effective. And then you can have halftime or double time, which is very useful if you have a library or if you have a project where you play a slow tempo or a fast tempo and you don't want the drums to follow that exactly. Then sync is basically a way to make you be more in time. So if you have it on, it means that you won't be able to hear it now, but it follows the metronome so that you will never be out of sync. And this can be good if you play it live, if you do that, or perhaps creating a faster workflow so you don't have to quantize everything afterwards. I don't tend to use it, and it's not because it's a bad thing, it's just a workflow thing. I find that if I have it on note, it always starts the sample where I want it to start, and I find that it doesn't always do that when I have the beat on. So if I make any mistakes, I'd rather quantize it afterwards. But that's a work preference. Here on the left side, we have dynamics, and this is very important that I promised I would talk about later. So if you have these common phrases here who are always the same, I can create variety in the dynamics. See, that really adds variety, and it's very important to do these things. It's not just volume, it's also a little bit the attack of the drums. Okay, and even the hits are affected here. So yeah. And then on the left side, we have low and high, which has a little bit more to do with what we're going to look at later here, but I just want to show you. Now I only hear the high drums. And now just the low drums. And I can fade it in like that. I can also control this by moving this thing up and or left or right here and have it permanent. Yeah. Or I can also turn off the drums I don't want to hear. But the pitch wheel here, it's controlled with the pitch wheel. Then it's a more direct effect that you can control as you play. Okay, so before we go on to this section, I wanted to tell you that I find that it's smarter, I shouldn't say that. I find it more interesting to use this, to find the sound you're interested in, because these are the sounds. These are the different drum sets and patterns. Action, battle, giant, odd meters, and suspense. There are quite a few you can choose in here. And then when you find something that you like, you can always mess with it here. And this is where all the presets come in, because there are a lot of presets. And it can sometimes be a little bit confusing if you're like, wow, there's a lot of sounds here. How do I get different drum sounds? Here are the different drum sounds. Here are the presets that are made out of these controls. Fun and inspiring to check out, for sure. You can get lost in hours checking all of them out. So that's what I would go here. And I did forget also the latch button. Very useful. You just, you don't have to hold down the key, so you can, you can have a sandwich at the same time or just do something else. It's a little bit easier to work that way. So it's actually a very good feature. Okay, so we got this section, and now let's look at the top section. And this is something that really makes drums a little bit more interesting than just sort of a drum machine. There are a few drum sample libraries out there that do similar stuff, and they also have effects. But this is something that makes not only, the possibility to have a lot of interesting effects, but also to make more interesting sound designs and a variety that really makes this instrument stand out more than I initially thought. I'm going to be honest, I thought in the beginning, well, yeah, it's just sample libraries, and they're quite nice and all that. But the more and more I start to work with this, as I see it's not only a quick workflow, it also has some really, really nice features that adds extra possibilities. So let's look at this first. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the high drums. So we just work with the low drums right now. These controls here are exactly the same ones as up here. It's just that you can control them, differently. So you have one sounds for the low and another one for the high drums. So you see there's a lot of variety here. So let's look at this. We first have Focus EQ, and this is a great little button that I wish more instrument makers would pay attention to. Now, the purist, the sort of the sound engineer nerd probably won't like this because this is too easy, right? I want more knobs. I want all the frequencies and all the different cues and everything I can change. And trust me, I know how to run an EQ because I do this for a living, so it's important to know. But I appreciate this simplicity because when I create music, I just want to be able to do something quickly, not tweak the hell out of it, so to speak. So now, if you listen here, we just take a low sound here. The Focus EQ is just gonna focus on the lower frequencies now. It's not a notch, it's just focusing more there, so it's more rumbly. And vice versa. It's a subtle effect, but I really like it because maybe you just want the lower rumble to get out of the way of the bass, or maybe you want the high frequencies to get out of the way, or you want it to focus a little bit differently. And this is a very, very fast tweak to make the sound a little bit more sit in the mix where you want it. Obviously, you can use your own EQs anyway, but I really like that. Very fast workflow. We have shape, and this is kind of like a transient shaper. Listen to it. Yeah. So when it's the middle, it's just the normal stuff. When you go a little bit to the left, basically the K is cut off more and more, so the sample is shorter and shorter. And here, the attack is smoothened, so there's almost no attack at all, so it sounds very soft. You don't hear the first transient sound there. Very nice to even shape your sound even further. Then we have character effects, and this is basically how to change the sound in various ways, either with an interesting EQ or a compressor or an amp simulator. So we have different kinds of cuts and boosts here. We have radio and telephone. We can try saturate, which is very nice to get that big growly sound. You know? So it's like it's breaking, you know, it's really nice. So that to create that big nasty sound. We also have inharmonic, which is cool. So you see, it starts to become a sound designer here. Then we have boom, which is sort of adding the lower frequencies even more. So you have more EQ possibilities. Yeah, really dirty there. And you also have sizzle, which is the opposite, but notice that it's easier to hear that on the higher frequency instruments, obviously. And yeah, a few different compressors parallel. If you really want to sort of even out, flatten the dynamic layers there. So a lot of ways to change the sound in creative, fun ways. And here motion effects is to add emotion to the sound. Not emotion, motion. So for example, you can have a gate. So we don't hear anything now. We have a simple rhythm, but I add. Yeah, so now we're adding rhythm to the sound on top. Yeah, we can have a filter gate. And now that simple drum is becoming a whole different thing, you know? Yeah, so you can change it a lot. You can add a sweep filter. That's in rhythm, right? Delays are pretty effective. So again, character effects change the sounds and motion adds more rhythm, more variety to the drums already. Yeah, obviously you might have all these effects already, you might have your preferred ones, but here it is in one interface and very simple to add too. Again, all these effects are the same up here in the high drums. Now, if we have both turned on at the same time, we have this middle one that affects both of them, obviously. And the highlighter is very effective and maybe something you haven't thought about. It is a notch filter, right? But it can also be used as a dynamic tool. Think about this. So you can sort of sweep in that way and create a very dynamic, interesting effect. Then we have ambience, which is reverbs and also some delays, and they're quite good. They fit the purpose. You can obviously use your own, but here they are, and they work really well. And then we have the finisher button, this big, creative, fun one. They are, first of all these different master effects are basically different kinds of limiters and compressors to compact the sound to make it, in your face, So these are more subtle and not always so subtle effects to sort of cram the sound in, which is quite useful. It's sort of a one knob effect there, if you know waves, one knobs. But you also have very fun, creative ones. For example, we can do... it's just become something completely different. Let's try this one. Yeah, and obviously you don't have to have it max. You can just have a little bit at the same time. Yeah, very nice. What else do we have? Dirt. Okay, crunch. Sort of a really, really nasty limiter there. What else do we have? Move. Sort of very creative delay effects. There's a lot of effects here, and I don't want to show them all because it takes too long, but I'm telling you, you can do a lot of stuff here. And if you don't know what to do, you can always try some of the presets here, which really show some interesting and great sounds. So there are a few things that I think could be a little bit better with this plugin. I still want to say though, no plugin is perfect, but what I miss with this plugin is that it doesn't have a reset button. That means you can sort of reset everything, remove all the effects to 0, because sometimes maybe you try something, you want to try something completely different, you change your new sound, but all effects are still on, and then you have to reset each of them manually, which is not enormously a big problem, but it would be nice to do that. I also think it would be really great if you could change the high and low sounds independently from each other. So you can have one rhythm from low drums and a completely different one from the high ones. So you can create even more variations. I also found in the beginning that I didn't find this was the highest quality samples I've ever heard, but I do have to say after tried it quite a bit that it does work really well in a mix, and maybe that's what they thought about. It doesn't stick out too much. It doesn't sort of get into those nasty frequencies that really cause problems. But I have tried other sample libraries where it feels like the quality of the samples are just a little bit higher. But that might be something that you have to try out yourself. And I do recommend to try this out. Ujam has this policy that it lets you try their instruments for free for a few days. It depends a little bit what library it is, but it's either 7 days or even up to a month. And this is really nice. And I really think that other sample companies should think about this, because sometimes you spend a lot of money and you really want to make sure that this is something for you before you spend all that money. So other sample libraries really need to pay attention to that. Anyway, I'm not sponsored, as I said before. I do have an affiliate link, and if you want to support me for this review, and if you are interested in this plugin, you can always click on that link, and it helps me out a little bit. But otherwise, other ways to support me is to thumb this video up if you like it. You can subscribe to me, or you can even become a patron if you want to. I hope you found this review helpful. It was fun making it. So until next time, this is Sam signing out. Take care.